Let's talk now to Julian Verlinger, a researcher at the Department of Political and Social Science at the European University Institute. He joins us virtually from Vienna in Austria. Good morning to you, Julian. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for having me.
Let me start with what is making the international headlines at the moment, and that is Nancy Pelosi's visit to the island of Taiwan and all the storm it's generating. But Mrs. Pelosi says that against the background of what is going on in Ukraine, where bigger countries, tend to be bullying and intimidating smaller countries, it was important to show solidarity with Taiwan. Do you think she's done that by this visit, and that other smaller countries would probably take some kind of solace from from the visit to that island?
Well, Nancy Pelosi's move was certainly a courageous one, and certainly also one which wasn't received, let's say, lightly in China, and wasn't received lightly in the US either. Lots of commentators say this is a very dangerous move at this point. However, I must say I understand her reasoning in this specific question, as we are facing currently a war of aggression inside Europe, which obviously motivates other countries who have certain ideas about perhaps attacking countries in their vicinity for this or another historical reason, makes them perhaps think that it is possible to do so. So visiting Taiwan at this point, I suppose, must be understood as a political move to show that even if the international order appears to have broken down at this moment in Ukraine, it has not broken down in other places.
To what you're deeply involved in at the moment, and that's the situation of the displaced people, the humanitarian crisis that what has gone on in Ukraine has spawned. What is the situation right now with those who are displaced? And there are two groups. There are those who are internally displaced and those who are displaced outside. Let's start off with those who are internally displaced. What can you tell us about their situation at the moment?
Well, so the UNHCR estimates that currently there's about 7 million internally displaced Ukrainians, and some more 13 million that are stranded in their homes or in their villages, in their towns due to fighting, destruction of infrastructure, and so on and so forth. Now, we have to compare this with the number of refugees. As you correctly said, the number of refugees currently in Europe is 4 million. So the problem of internally displaced people is numerically speaking much higher than the problem of refugees. Now, the good news is that the international community appears to have stepped up to help IDPs, internally displaced people, via two pathways. First, via direct aid of first order priorities, such as foodstuff, medical aid, water purification tablets, and these kind of things. And then, of course, also via helping the Ukrainian social welfare services in dealing with this new strain on let's say national social safety nets. Yes, there are places where aid has a hard time reaching, specifically in the east of the country, and in, of course, the occupied territories. But it would be wrong to assume that the situation here is not getting better. Now, the bad news, on the other hand, is that, of course, this for internally displaced people is that this war is far from over. So this means that basically the short-term direct first-order needs will soon be exacerbated by the long-term needs, long-term issues arising from internal displacement, such as access to education, access to specialized healthcare. The IOM currently estimates that 38% of internally displaced people do not have access to full education, that about 1/4 of all Ukrainian internally displaced have no access to specialized healthcare. So these kind of long-term issues will become very important. So it is absolutely paramount for the international community, together with Ukraine, to work on long-term solutions for these issues.
The the destination, shall we say, of choice for most of those who leave Ukraine, who have fled Ukraine, would be Poland. And I also happen to know that you also work with a number of agencies which are on the border with Poland to help them move these refugees along and find them some level of comfort even while the war goes on. Does that put a great deal of pressure on the Polish medical facilities and personnel and even their humanitarian organizations in view of what is happening in Ukraine? And if so, is anybody stepping up to help?
Well, definitely. So what we need to know about the Polish healthcare system is that even prior to the crisis, Polish healthcare spending was well below European average. So the OECD, for example, puts a number to this, right? In 2021, the average of European nation spending on healthcare was 3,500 euros per capita. In Poland, it was a mere 1,500, which led to, even in normal times, higher mortality rates and worse healthcare for our citizens. Add to this that Poland is dealing with a brain drain within the healthcare services due to low wages, with Polish healthcare personnel going to other European countries in search for higher wages. Now, we can see now why the current roughly 1.3 million Ukrainian refugees that are staying somewhat permanently in Poland put a strain on this already strained system. And the problem here, of course, is that, I mean, the EU, for example, has recently committed an additional sum to support Poland, about 250 million euros, to help Poland deal with the humanitarian and specifically medical situation. However, the thing is, healthcare capacities can't just be bought over the counter. These are long-term investments. You cannot just buy a doctor or a nurse. You have to educate them. You have to train them. You have to make sure that facilities are on point. So, long story short, there is goodwill, there is money, but the Polish healthcare system at the moment is facing a serious strain.
Indeed, one can only hope that this situation is resolved one way or the other pretty soon, so that there isn't more crisis up ahead. Julian Verlinger, thank you so much for your time, and do continue to stay safe out there in Vienna, Austria.
Thank you, sir. Goodbye.